Ready here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And I can tell you for a fact that today has been a crazy day, both for me personally, professionally, but also in the world of comics. There was some news that came out that the family that owns Diamond has made an acquisition that puts them in the world of graded comics and collectibles. And unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get to that topic tonight because there is a lot that is actually going on. We already have a full show that is planned, and maybe we will get to that topic and a few other things that have bubbled to the surface over the course of today in a future live stream. So I definitely want to encourage you guys to stay tuned for that. But as a reminder, this live stream that you are listening to now, if you are in the chat, is going to be rebroadcast on the podcast. And so whatever platform it is that you choose to listen to podcast on, you can actually listen to Comics Today on that podcasting platform and take a little Regie on the go. And I can tell you, depending upon the platform you sign up for or that you use, there is about 100 or so episodes out there for you to listen to. And in this episode, what we are going to do is we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. One of the things that we are going to discuss and spend probably the bulk of our time talking about are some culturally relevant comics. And this is actually a topic that came up a few weeks ago, and we're just now getting around to talk about it. But we're going to highlight a couple of comics that may be unknown, but are culturally relevant, that have had some impact in some way, shape, or form. And I've actually invited 4 guests on to spend some time talking with me about these specific topics or these books. And before we get to that, I have a few things that I want to get to. And one of those things is to acknowledge the newest sponsor that is actually signed up to support the channel, and that sponsor is myslabs.com. And if you guys have not been on this website, I definitely want to encourage you guys to check it out. One of the great things about MySlabs is that they charge a 1% fee for sellers. And because of that, it actually allows people, sellers that is, to retain more of the money when they sell a comic. Therefore, people are more likely to put up some good comics for buyers to be able to snag. And so as you can see here on screen, there's a pretty nice amount of inventory up here, some pretty cool books, some 90s books, some sports books, some modern books, and even some Silver Age grails up here as well. So if you guys have not been to MySlabs, I definitely want to encourage you guys to check them out. There is a link in the description, myslabs.com. And again, shout out to them for supporting the channel and putting me in a position to be able to do these types of videos on a regular basis. So shout out to them, and please try to support them if you can. As a reminder, we are also going to be giving away a comic this week, simply for watching the videos that come out from the channel and commenting on that video. You will have an opportunity to win this book right here. This is The Hobbit. This is issue number 1. It is a Blue Ocean book that we actually spotlighted probably a couple of weeks ago now at this point. But when the video drops, there is a Blue Ocean video that will be coming out tomorrow. Watch that video, comment on that video, and you will be entered in for a chance to win this book right here, The Hobbit. And this giveaway is open to anybody in North America. So that's the United States and Canada. You have an opportunity to win this book. And shout out to Doug for doing a lot of the research, technically all of the research for those Blue Ocean spec videos, but also for donating these books for us to be able to give away. So shout out to him. And he's actually going to be one of the people that we are going to be talking with a little bit later in the show. So let me skip my chat back together. So one of the things that we always do with this show is that we take an opportunity to acknowledge if people picked up something at their LCS today. So if you were able to hit your LCS and you picked up some good books, let us know what it is that you picked up. And if you read something today that was really awesome that we should put on the top of our stacks, I definitely want to encourage you guys to shout that out as well. So I'm going to the chat real quick, And some people talking about height here. I don't know what's going on. No, my slabs, I do not believe is in Canada. That is definitely one of the drawbacks with a lot of the sponsors that I work with. They are located in the United States and typically only go to the United States, but I do not know that for a fact. It's actually a really good question, and unfortunately, I do not know that answer. So, Mitch, if you have a moment, there is a link in the description. Go over, check them out, and then maybe you'll see something on there. Maybe there is a seller that is selling and takes care of Canada. I honestly do not know off the top of my head, and you have my apology for that. Scrolling through some of the comments here, the Hobbit says, Tina, yes, indeed, it is going down. Jess Pele, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. What is this? Squirrel Madness is giving us a little bit of some information here. He says, my slab mentions Canada sellers, but when I signed up, it wanted to force me to pick a state. So he does not know. He is throwing up the shrug emoji, which I am a huge fan of. I would say I actually spoke with the CEO of my slabs a short while ago for some other things that I'm working on. I would say try to send them a message and see if they are responsive to messages that are sent via the website. And I will also try to reach out to him to see if I can get you an answer. Probably won't be at this very moment because clearly I'm doing a live stream here. Scrolling through some of the comments here. What is that? What is that? Are you talking about my slab? Says, I didn't buy anything, but I did sell my Thor 165 because of FOMO prices. I respect that. I respect. Maybe I should sell one of mine. I have a couple of copies. Maybe I would sell some. Feed My Eyes says 12 books today. Some highlights: He Who Fights with Monsters 2, Batman Urban Legend 8, Kang, Ordinary Gods, Eternals Forever #1, Spider-Man 31, Batman. Very good. Nice list right there. And I love your thumbnail, brother. Who does not love some Wolverine? Who does not love? Scrolling down through the comments, Matt Wood says he picked up a couple of books here, including, got away from me, ASM 76 and Miles Morales 31. That's what's up. Jay says it is too soon to sell your 165. No doubt. No doubt. The shipping charges are a monster. No doubt about that one, brother. It is a monster. But again, I would definitely encourage you guys to reach out to see if my slabs does support. I was on some other platforms and tried to look at some of those details, but I did not get a chance to dig into my slabs today. But that was something, for some reason or another, that was on the top of my mind. So He Who Fights Monsters says Steve is fire. As I try to get something out of my eye, whatever that is wicked. L. Smith, what did he do? He says the wife picked up a couple of books right here, including Monster Squad 2. Milt is commenting here as well. New Batman, The Imposter was pretty good. He says, very good, very good. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Steve says only 18 books this week so it's a down week for you. It's a down week, brother. There is always next week. My man Mark Andrews from Canada picked up a couple of books. It says the shipping is messed up again. There you go. Scrolling through some of the comments, seeing what else. I had to go to 3 different LCSs because all of my Marvel books were messed up. He says, yeah, we already know. We already know about you, brother. So for those folks that may have come in a little bit late, we acknowledge the newest sponsor that has signed up with the channel. That is myslabs.com. I originally announced them on the most recent installment of my Dealing for Keys series, but I also wanted to acknowledge them here again. One of the great things about them is the 1% seller fees that somebody pays. And then this book right here, there is a video that is coming out tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch that video, comment on that video for an opportunity to win a copy of The Hobbit, which is a really cool book that my man Doug actually donated to us. A shout out to Doug for that. All right, so let me scroll through. Mitch says bought Silver Surfer #1 and Doctors 1 signed by Stan Lee in the wild. That's what's up. Good stuff, brother. All right, let me see. So we have a guest that was supposed to be rolling in here, and I do not see him as of yet. So we're going to actually continue on with our conversation. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today was this idea of culturally relevant comics. And so what I did is I reached out to a couple of guests, and I asked these guys, to think about the topic of culturally relevant comics and to identify a comic that fit that bill in their mind. And so I invited 4 guests on, and we are going to talk about these comics. And some of these comics are maybe ones that you've seen before, but you didn't necessarily know why that comic was important. Maybe you've never ever heard of this comic before. But either way, this is one of the beautiful things about this hobby, is trying to share some of this really awesome information, this institutional knowledge, passing it on to other people. And so, as I mentioned, I have 4 guests that we are going to talk about, and we are going to start things off with a person that is a frequent guest on the channel, Bentley. Well, I'm sorry, Doug, my bad, brother. Doug, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Reggie, and I'm sure Bentley will make an appearance at some point.
It's possible, brother. I was almost late for the show. I was downstairs trying to feed my dogs, and I was like, I need to go. You guys need to eat faster so I can get upstairs, but I had to feed them because otherwise they will bark until fed. So I had to take care of that. But it is good to see you, brother. Technically, this is our second stream of the day. We're not yet ready to talk about the other reason why we were talking, but soon. Stay tuned, folks, because there is some stuff that's coming. But Doug, what is the book that you chose to talk about tonight that fits the bill of being culturally relevant?
So I'll throw out one that I didn't pick first because I thought long and hard about choosing Mouse by Art Spiegelman. So if somebody else picks that tonight, I'll be thrilled. If they don't, if there's ever a part 2, I just tip my hand. But the comic that I did pick was Air Pirates Funnies issue number 1, which I do not own, but thank you for throwing it up on the screen. And I will say, before anybody sees this comic and runs out and picks one up for the kiddies, this is not by Walt Disney Company at all. And
for children.
No, definitely not kid friendly at all. So just a disclaimer on that. But I'm sure we'll get into all of the why it is what it is and what it looks like as we chat.
There may also be some adults that might want to avoid this, depending upon your interests.
Yes.
Let's say, because it is robust. But Doug, I have seen this book around social media. I have seen, and I can't remember what club it is. There's one of these clubs out there that will oftentimes show this book, and I did not appreciate what this book was until you started talking about it and I started researching it. What makes this book culturally relevant? And we're going to take it in bite-sized chunks, but what makes this book culturally relevant? Why did you decide to talk about it tonight?
Sure. Well, there are 2 main reasons that I picked it. One, because I feel it is representative of the underground comics with an X genre from the 60s and early 70s, which that genre was extremely influential in developing what is turned into independent comics. They created the self-distribution model and self-publishing model that's been influential wildly to this day. But more specifically, Air Pirates Funnies was really the brainchild of Dan O'Neill, an underground cartoonist who was syndicated through the San Francisco Chronicles. And he specifically wanted to target Disney for extreme parody for a lot of different reasons. And when you mentioned this is not for some adults, I will say, if you're not familiar with 60s underground comics, not only do they depict things like drugs and sex, but they really intentionally push the boundaries of free speech. And because of that, they depict certain things that would be probably very offensive to many different people today as they were then. But
so let's pause here for a second. What I basically just heard you say is that this guy, Dan O'Neill, essentially picked the fight with Disney, with the House of Mouse. Maybe not as powerful now as it was back then, because this was released back in what, 71 or something like that. But he essentially purposefully picked the fight to do what? Like put a little bit of meat on that. What was he attempting to really do here?
sure. So there were probably a lot of different reasons. From what I've read, some of his early motivations were he felt that he was going to be fired off of his Odd Botkins comic strip and replaced. So he intentionally copyright infringed Disney characters to pick a legal fight so that he could get ownership of his creation. That was one reason. But the other reason, the reasons are more complex, and the view of what Disney was doing to the culture, the way that Disney was defending its copyright and spending a lot of money to have copyright and laws changed, so that it could keep its Walt Disney's characters from entering fair, or I just blanked on the term, not fair use, public domain. You know, this is what Joe should be on here for this, but there is a great book that, if anybody really wants the details of the importance of this, called The Pirates and the Mouse. Outstanding book. And I'll let you know that this case is so important that it's not only taught in some law schools in case law, but it's also been cited in important fair use Supreme Court decisions over the years. So part of its cultural relevance is the boundary pushing, but part of it is that it has actually influenced legal interpretations of what we can use as fair use. And Regie, as you know, my background as a syndicated cartoonist, you know, almost 20 years ago, when I was a 20-something cartoonist wanting to do a daily parody comic, I didn't understand what was okay and what wasn't, as far as what I might get sued over. And I was not in a financial position to go out and rent attorneys. So one of the things that I did was read up on important decisions that had been made around parody. And this was an important book in that regard.
So what I'm hearing you say is that not only does this have some cultural relevance, right? Societal relevance, but it also has some personal relevance to you as a cartoonist, to understand where the boundaries were for where you could push and where you couldn't. And this is actually pretty interesting when you think about like what's recently happened with Dave Chappelle, for example, with some of his comedy, and Netflix coming out to defend what he has said, because they're saying that is the role of comedy, is to push the boundaries. It's interesting that you're talking about this back in 1971, that same type of thing, basically trying to find where the edges were of what was safe and not safe, and pushing society in a certain direction. So I think it's really interesting that you chose this, and I saw some of the immediate connections, but then you're making some other points that I'm like, didn't see that one coming, which I think is wonderful. So, but getting to your point about the cost, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Disney ultimately settled this case. There were, I think, like over $2 million worth of legal fees that they spent fighting him, where I guess this thing was like, it was, there was a decision that was reached in the courts, then it would think it was like overturned, and then there was more appeals, and then it just kept going on. And I think Dan actually said that was his strategy, was to keep the process moving forward. Did I get anything wrong there? And if not, what would you add to what I just said?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The case stretched out with appeals for over 10 years. And Dan O'Neill, and it wasn't just Dan O'Neill, the Air Pirates were a collective of underground cartoonists that he brought together. Yep. but the individual lawsuits dragged out so long, in part because they had no resources to ever pay for this. And one of their strategies, even after they lost their case, which I think is important to note, I think that many legal scholars debate this case still on whether it was a correct decision or not. But one of the strategies they employed was to rally other cartoonists under the name of the, I think it was the MLF, Mouse Liberation Front, to start bombarding Disney with creator-owned parodies of their characters. And at one point, I think through San Diego Comic-Con, got like 60 creators to create Disney parodies, and they would just send them to the Disney Corporation to bombard them, because if you're going to defend your trademark, you're supposed to not pick and choose. So
defend against all of those. My ex-wife was a trademark, a soft IP attorney. And so she sent so many cease and desist letters to every single person, like small companies that were trying to infringe upon Starbucks's brand using a version of the siren. Yep. She was on it. Like, no, you have to take that off the cup, right? So there's some things that I actually remember from that marriage. I block a lot out, but there are some things that I retain. But you have to love these cartoonists. You have to love them rallying the troops and taking a stand and pushing things. And what I'm hearing you also say is that this has had some lasting effects, not just on you, but again, free use and some other things to this day. And I fight some of those things, right? With my videos that include certain things that people try to put copyright infringements on. I'm able to overturn them by saying this is free use, or this is me giving a review of this content. So even to this day, I'm hearing that there are still ramifications potentially because of some of the things that came out of this comic.
Absolutely. And I'm going to actually read a case, and my apologies to Joe, because I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. Joe, we need to chat about this more in depth at some point.
Real quick before you do that, for those folks that are coming in late, I actually have a number of guests that are lined up, and we are spending some time talking about culturally relevant comics. And the very first comic that Doug has identified is this one right here, Air Pirate Funnies. And he is walking us through why this is a culturally relevant thing. And after Doug does this passage, I may actually get to our first guest. There are some things that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to get back to this topic. So you guys bear with me, because we're going to move some things around. But Doug, get after it, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Campbell v. Acuff Rose Music, Inc., which is a Supreme Court decision that's very interesting. It was essentially about the song Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, and the lawsuit was against the band Two Live Crew. So those of us of a certain age know, nasty as they want to be, they did a parody of Roy Orbison's song, and in a unanimous Supreme Court decision, it was ruled that their song was fair use. And the decision cited the Air Pirates case, the Disney v. the Air Pirates, or Walt Disney Productions v. the Air Pirates. But some really important things came out of that. And one of them was that while your new work, and it had to be something new and different, if it couldn't displace the original, meaning that if you never wanted to listen to Roy Orbison again because of Two Live Crew, that would not be appropriate. But it could disparage the original, which is something that was that Disney and the Air Pirates were very much at odds about. And we could go down a rabbit hole, so I'm going to leave it at that.
I did not expect you to bring up Uncle Luke. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not expect Uncle Luke in this conversation. I'm very surprised that Uncle Luke actually even knew what Air Pirates was. Better said, he hired an attorney that knew what Air Pirates was. I'm impressed by that. I don't know if people remember Two Live Crew, but goodness gracious, it was Ooh, goodness gracious. Doug, where can people get a hold of you, my man, if they are looking for you on the internets?
So on Instagram at doug.bratton, BRATTON.9.
So choked up on your own
I
name.
need
Goodness
water.
gracious.
And on ReggieCollects.com every Wednesday with the blog post. Good time to give me the hook.
There we go. So, Doug, thank you, brother. Get a drink of water. I have to also acknowledge the fact that Doug is the one that actually came up with this topic. He actually reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and was like, hey, how about this? And my standard response is, let me think about it. Let me noodle it. I noodled it, and then I decided that this was a good topic. And as I mentioned a second ago, we are going to take a brief break, and then we're going to get to our next guest in a hot second on that same topic. But I want to introduce my buddy real quick, my buddy that does some work behind the scenes for me. I want to bring him on the show to talk about an important topic that I think is relevant to a lot of people. Lee, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Reggie. I got to say, that was a very smooth segue right there.
I try. I practice it. I walk around the house and I practice my segues.
That was great. That was great.
But I want to thank you, my man. So the reason that I wanted to have you come on is because you are the brains behind the Discord server. You came to me a while ago and was like, hey, I think you should do Discord. I was like, hey, great idea. Don't have the time. You stepped up. You help out, you created this thing, you monitor it, you keep it running, and I'm very thankful for you. But you also came up with another idea the other day, and it took me some time to get around to it. But can you talk briefly about that idea? And then I'm going to ask you a couple of follow-up questions, so don't feel like you have to get it all in one take.
Sure.
But what was your idea?
So the idea was, you're about building the community, right? And I think it's fair to say that you've inspired many other people to start their own YouTube channels. I think that's fair to say. And so as members of the community kind of branch off and do their own thing, I don't want them to leave and do their own thing. I want them to stay part of this community. So that's why I suggested offering a place to have them share when they post new content as well, which is why you agreed to let me do the community streams section.
Yep. So the idea here is that within the Discord server, which I'm actually going to throw up on screen right now, people, I don't know what that is. I think I may have messed up there. We'll see. Can you guys still hear me?
Can still hear you.
Okay, that was a weird change over there. But what you guys are looking at right here on screen is actually the Discord server. This is the place where folks can actually go and have a conversation after the live stream ends, or just have a conversation about books that you may have picked up, your collection or something like that. And essentially, Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're talking about is this section right here called community streams. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
So it is in this area that folks that have YouTube channels out there that are part of our Discord server can actually post up when they post videos on YouTube to drive eyeballs to their content. Is that correct?
Correct. The only requirement we have right now is that you have to reach level 10 on the server, which just means you kind of need to be an active participant. It takes maybe 150 comments, to reach that level, because we don't want people coming in that are just not even part of your community and just using you to post their content, right?
Yep.
But that's why I granted it to several people off the bat that I knew had already reached that limit, that level of stuff.
So the idea is you join Discord, you get involved in the community, or you're already involved. You now have the ability to post up things in this community streams to share your content, the content that you've created with other people. And Lee, you do this automatically. So somebody comes in, they join today. They go to I think it's the welcome tab. They do what it is that they need to do to become part of our community. And then when they reach level 10, you automatically grant them the access. Is that correct?
I wish I could say it's automatic, but I haven't hooked it up automatic yet. Right now, you do have to ask me, or any of the moderators actually probably can grant it. You or I, if you just post it, we'll grant you that tag, like the Gibbon Gang tag. It's granted by request. So when you think you've met that requirement and you have a channel, share it and I'll tag you. And then what that'll allow you to do is you can now post links in there. I wanted to make sure everybody else can post comments on there, so everybody else can post in the channel, and but they can't do links in that channel.
There you go. There you go. Hopefully folks will take advantage of this. So there is a link in the description of this video if you guys are interested in joining the Discord. One of the other things I asked Lee to give some thought to, and I'm not going to put you on the spot for this right now, but the thought was to potentially do some kind of giveaway, right? For those new people that join the Discord server, at some point, we will potentially do some kind of giveaway for those members that get more involved in the Discord. Maybe we'll do something for them. So Lee, maybe you'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about what that giveaway might look like after you have an opportunity to noodle it a little more. But at the end of the day, to the point, this is all about giving folks a platform and sharing the platform to say, hey, setting up a Discord server is not easy. It is not easy, and it is not easy to keep it going. Lee has invested time in me in setting it up. I want to keep it going, and I want to encourage other people to join and to have their own little community, if you will, within what it is that we are doing. Lee, did I say anything incorrect there, or is there anything that you want to add if I was correct?
No, I think you're right. And I think people know who's been watching your videos. It's about building the community, and we're trying to provide the platform. I think I was watching some of the other channels that you've highlighted recently. The guy that's doing the awards, I was watching his over the weekend, and they were trying to, there's like 500 some channels that he is following. And I was watching John's Comics with Kids. You know, you've mentioned him a few times.
Yep.
First time I ever watched him, and he was talking about, oh, we should set up a Discord server. I was like, oh my God, if you could just, we have one, just come here, talk here. Let's all talk comics together in the same place, like we're in the same comic shop, right? But and I didn't want people to feel like they had to go segment their group into other things, because if we fragment, then we're just much smaller groups and doing our own little pockets, and it's much better if we're all together.
And the thing is, you can build it and they will not come. Again, Discord is not like YouTube where you put a video out there and people will watch it. Discord is not like that. You have to keep feeding the beast. And so fingers crossed that people will join the Discord if they haven't. There's some really cool features there. Like you can voice chat with people. You can listen to music. There's where you can post up photos of your room. If you picked up some recent awesome books, you can post them there. There's a section that Lee created where folks can actually get in there and trade comics. So, and there's a one on pressing and cleaning as well. So again, if you have the time, there's a link in the description. I encourage you guys to check it out. Lee, how can people get a hold of you should they have questions for you about Discord?
On the Discord, you can just ping me in Discord. You can just highlight my name and DM me. I'll respond to that. DM stands for direct message. So don't want to assume anybody knows it.
That is not a bad comment to make. So good.
Yeah. And I mean, we just created 2 new sections too. We also did an autograph section because I'm hoping Master Blaster will show all of those Spider-Mans that he has. You know, he's slow playing me on those. And then somebody else requested NFTs, so we added that. And that one could definitely use some help. I'm curious about that one.
Yeah, and what's funny is I actually set up a playlist just this morning for all of my NFT related videos because somebody reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I got questions about NFTs." Had a couple of videos. I had not set up a playlist, so I just did that. But Lee, I want to thank you, brother. I appreciate our online conversations, our video conversations, but I also appreciate our exchanges outside of the public eye, and we have them fairly often. I am very appreciative for you. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show and chat for a few minutes.
Well, you know, I appreciate you, Reggie. Thank you.
All right, brother. Be well.
See ya.
All right. So getting back to the topic at hand of culturally relevant comics, I next want to bring up my buddy, White Whale Comics. This guy and I go way back. We go way back. I remain incredibly jealous of all of his hair because it is just a wonderful cascade of hair over there. I do not have that problem. White Whale, it is good to see you, brother.
How you doing, man?
I am doing well. How are things?
Things are all right. You know, it's funny. I think, while we have collaborated before a few times in the past, I don't think I've ever actually been on your channel before. So this is exciting.
And that's the thing. I realized that we've done a live stream, I want to say, at least once before, I think, but we have collaborated. We've created videos. We used to talk a lot more than we talk now, but we still talk. You actually recently helped me out with a project that we are not going to talk about just yet. But it is nice. It is nice to actually have you on the show, and thank you for agreeing to come on and give me some of your time. So
yeah, well, I appreciate you inviting me. It's very, very humbling.
I'm a generous guy. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So Alec, what comic have you chosen to showcase today that has some cultural relevance? And as you heard, we're going to take it in bite-sized chunks. You don't have to take it in one. But what is the comic that you've selected?
Well, it's funny because Doug mentioned Mouse, and that was kind of the first thing I thought of as well. But you know, you one of the criteria was that you wanted something that's kind of lesser known, and I feel like while Mouse is still not as widespread as it should be, you know, it won a Pulitzer Prize, and it's like the biggest indie comic. So I shied away from that. I did want to quickly show these before we get into my book, because we all love looking at real comics.
Oh, very nice, sir.
And I have number 2 as well.
I think you just made Doug a little jealous over there. Goodness. I mean, how hard is it to find that book, the Air Pirates? How hard is it to find that?
It's fairly difficult. You know, you see it on eBay pretty frequently, but finding it at cons, I bought that issue 1 at Baltimore 2019, and it was the only one I saw there, and it's the only one I've seen for quite some time at a show. So if you see them at a good price, I would definitely recommend picking them up, because they're awesome books to have in your collection. But yeah, they're not easy to find. They're not especially cheap.
There we go. And I forgot to ask Doug that question as we got to the end of his. So I'm glad that you showed it, because it allowed me to kind of ask that question and you to give those wonderful answers. So to the question at hand, though, what is the book that you chose to showcase after the flex that you just did a few moments ago?
Well, you know, not all of us are bodybuilders, so I have to flex in different ways. I did cheat a little bit, and I'll say that because I picked a book that represents a genre that I think a lot of people don't talk about enough. And what I picked is specifically Optic Nerve number 3 by Adrian Tomine. And for those of you not familiar with Optic Nerve, it is I think 11 or 12 issues that came out over the course of like 12 years. Like it took them a long time to finish all of them.
It was like a semi-regular book, or no, I'm sorry, semi-irregular book. Is what it was.
Exactly. Because some gaps were like years before he put them out.
Yep.
And besides, I'm pretty sure that I haven't read them all in a long time, but I'm pretty sure besides the last couple of issues, which were a continuous story, they're all anthology based. And not only that, like there's multiple stories in each issue. So they're just little like snippets of slice of life things. And the reason I said I kind of cheated was because, you know, I thought about picking Love and Rockets number 1 as well, which is, I think, a much bigger, well-known book. But things like Love and Rockets, things like 8 Ball by, shoot, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
It's all
anyway,
right. No big deal.
I'll come back to it. 8 Ball and, you know, Chris Ware stuff like Jimmy Corrigan, and Mouse and all these other books of that era, which did something that I think, for me, the reason I picked this is culturally relevant. Yeah, Charles Burns as well. Someone mentioned Charles Burns in the chat. Is that, you know, obviously as kids, we all read comics and they're superheroes, and you might relate to some of the issues they're dealing with, especially people like Spider-Man, because, you know, they're a teenager and they're dealing with stuff. But at the end of the day, they're still superheroes and they're still doing these fantastical things. And this genre of comics really is just these kind of heartbreaking moments of reality that, you know, I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of connect with on a very real level. And to me, that was something when I started reading books like this, you know, it really kind of changed my perspective on what comics are. And not only that, it is the sort of thing where I connected with comic books very obviously. I've been, you know, buying them for 35 years. Very severely. Part of the reason why, and I know a lot of people have the same story, is that I wasn't a strong reader as a kid. And so comic books gave me something I could read and look at pictures and still enjoy the stories, because I love stories.
Yep.
And so when I found this kind of genre, or this group of artists who were doing things that were like, okay, here's this thing that you connect with, and it speaks to you on an emotional level. So to give you a little background, the reason I picked this specific issue, there's a story in it, which is the cover story. It's called Dylan and Donovan. It's about these twin girls who their parents are separated, and they're spending the summer with their father in California. And they go to the big convention, which they don't say it's San Diego. Clearly it's San Diego. And the father is trying to kind of reconnect with Donovan, because she is the one with the headphones on the cover, and she's kind of become distant, and she's a teenager, right? And especially for someone who is a divorced parent who doesn't see their kids all the time, he's like, oh, I know you like comics, I bought us tickets to go to this convention, let's drive down there, we'll have a good time, we'll hang out. And they get down there, and she's not paying attention to him. They just split up at the convention. They don't see each other the whole time. And there are some revelations that come out. It's narrated by the other sister. And so you get this interesting perspective of her seeing what she wants to see versus what is actually happening. And at the end of it, nothing is really resolved. They drive back, and they're just silent in the car. And it ends with her talking about seeing the mirages on the road in the desert. When it's really hot out and the road kind of wiggles. And for me, that's always kind of been I always took it as like a metaphor, right? Of her seeing what she wants to see down the road, but it's not achievable for her. Whereas all she really needs to do is kind of talk to her family. And because that's what she wants. She wants a relationship with her sister. She wants a relationship with her father. But this happiness is just a mirage to her. Whereas, if you reach out and grab it, it's there for her.
So let's turn the corner on that, right? So sounds like a very interesting story. What is your personal connection to this story, given the context that you just set up there a few moments ago?
I think so. My parents were married as long as my mom was alive, so I don't connect with that, but I do connect with this kind of feeling like you were an outcast in high school. And I had friends. Like, I'm not saying like I was some weird loner, but it's this feeling of like not knowing how to express your emotions when you're in that age, and not knowing how to like connect with your parents, even though maybe you want to. And not knowing how to connect with your siblings. When I was younger, my sister and I had a terrible relationship. Now we have a wonderful relationship because we're adults and we can kind of tackle those issues. But like I said, this is something that it came out in the mid 90s when I was a teenager. And so it was something that I was able to literally connect with on a very real level. And it was in a format of something that I connected with on a very real level.
There we
go. So to me, that's why it's culturally relevant. It's not as grand as Air Pirates is, which I also thought about picking, but you told me someone was.
I wouldn't have let you do that. But what's interesting though is that I personally have never heard of this topic before. I've never heard this comic, Optic Nerve. Never heard of it. The guy that is behind this, I think, does cartoons for The New Yorker. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably.
And he's been doing this. I think this specific issue was out in like 1996. And the way that you describe this story is a story that probably would have resonated with me, because while I had friends, felt like I was a person apart from other things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my parents are extremely extroverted people. I am more introverted. I did not always connect with them. Now we have a wonderful relationship. I mean, technically we've always had a wonderful relationship, but I always did not express myself to them because they were a little bit different. So it's interesting that the story that you tell, how it connected with you, and the fact that I had never heard of it yet, I could see myself connecting with this story as well. I think that that's really interesting. And so for those folks that are listening right now, essentially what we're doing is having a conversation about some culturally relevant comics. And I am joined by Alec Whitewell Comics, and he is spending some time talking with us about Optic Nerve issue number 3, a comic that resonated with him from like 1996. Alex, I'm curious from your perspective, is it best in your mind to pick up this individual copy, or would you recommend someone pick up the collected works? Because I think that this has been collected in like some graphic novel forms.
Yeah.
What's the thought there behind that?
I mean, if you want to go all out, I definitely recommend the collection. Every issue is wonderful, but you can still buy this. I believe you can still buy this issue. It's not a first print, but you can still buy it on Drawn and Quarterly's website. So the nice thing about this series is that you can just pick up this issue and read it, and you don't have to read the other issues if you don't want to. I mean, I would recommend that you do, because it's all beautiful, touching work. And some of it's just like really intentionally pulling on your heartstrings for reasons none other than to kind of force you to feel sad, which I know is kind of a weird thing to say, but when you think about like how popular something like horror movies are, the reason horror movies are so popular is because you are allowed to be scared in a safe environment. And similarly to things that pull on your heartstrings and make you sad intentionally, you are able to feel sad in a safe environment. So, for those of us who might suffer from like anxiety and depression, you don't always feel safe feeling those emotions. But when you have something that you're like, okay, I know why I'm feeling sad about this, and I know that it is okay to feel sad about this because it's going to pass, because it's just a story, it helps you kind of deal with some of those emotions.
There we go, brother. Again, thank you for coming on and talking with us about Optic Nerve. Where can people get a hold of you on the social media if they want to check you out?
I am on Instagram at Whitewell Comics. Feel free to send me a DM, and I'm always open to chat about comics or whatever.
And one quick question:
Yes, sir.
what is behind the name Whitewell? Because I saw somebody comment on that. What is behind the name?
It's a couple things. It's from Herman Melville's Moby Dick, and the reason I picked it was kind of twofold. Number one, it takes place in a town in Massachusetts where I'm from, or that's where it originates, the story. And also, it's this idea of Captain Ahab in the book. He's on this quest to find this white whale, and he is obsessed with it. And that kind of resonated with me as far as my comic hobby is concerned, where you're always kind of searching for this next white whale of a book that you can't really track down. So
I think a lot of people can also can appreciate the sentiment that was just there. So I appreciate you, brother, and we're going to have you back on the show. Thank you again for your first appearance here on Comics Today. Be well.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So next up, we are going to transition to another friend of the channel. And as a reminder, there is a video that is coming out tomorrow. This is a video on Blue Ocean Comics. And one of the things that Doug just realized, he messaged me yesterday, in each one of the videos that we have released in which we've identified 3 Blue Ocean books, at least one of those books from every single video has found its way into Key Collector app. And as a reminder, the video that we do essentially highlights 3 books that are not in Key Collector app, yet shortly after the video comes out, one of those books from each video appears in Key Collector app. So the question is, which book tomorrow will suddenly appear in the app? But if you choose to watch the video and enjoy it and leave a comment behind, you actually have an opportunity to win this book right here. This is The Hobbit, issue number 1. This is a book that we actually spotlighted a couple of weeks ago in another Blue Ocean video. So again, the video drops tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I encourage you to check it out for an opportunity to win a pretty nice copy of The Hobbit that was donated by Doug. So shout out to him. And to that point now, we are now going to introduce my good buddy, Milt. Milt is sitting there. Milt, are there 2 dogs with you or just one?
I have two, Reggie. I got Starsky and Hutch.
Brother, I always ask these questions, Milt, of people, and I have no clue what they're going to say, but then they deliver a line that I find incredibly humorous. I did not expect you to say that.
When I got them when they were little, they were either going to be Starsky and Hutch or Cheech and Chong.
Are they Shiba Inus? What are they?
Shiba Inus.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a Shiba Inu growing up at one point. He kept running away. So my parents ultimately gave him away to the people that found him. They were like, you can keep him. It's your dog now.
My boys are good. They Shiba Inus, for those who don't know, are Japanese hunting dogs. And during World War II, they almost went extinct. Some of the servicemen actually brought them back to this country and restarted them, and that's where they basically came from.
They're awesome little dogs. We just had one that was just not well trained, so he kept leaving, and my parents were like, "We're done with that." So, Milt, on the desk, I actually see a comic. I spot a comic. Yes. What is that comic that you have sitting there?
It is designed for survival.
Now, we in this series right now are highlighting culturally relevant comics. Why is Design for Survival a culturally relevant comic?
In all honesty, I'm not sure if the comic itself is the most relevant thing, or the fact that the federal government produced the comic that is the most relevant thing.
Talk to me about that, because I was not aware until you mentioned it. I don't know that I was aware that the federal government actually produced comics. So talk to me about that.
Well, nowadays, you have the National Security Council, which advises the president on a variety of situations. Mm-hmm. And going back in the 60s, before it was the National Security Council, it was the American Security Council. And the American Security Council had a little branch inside of it called the American Security Council Press. Mm. And they produced a number of comic books basically geared towards propagandizing kids.
So I'm laughing because I'm a history minor back in college.
Yep.
And I remember reading all types of stories and articles about other countries having propaganda machines that would put out information to their population to persuade them in a certain direction. I did not know that the federal government, not that I'm surprised, I did not know that our federal government had a propaganda machine. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we still have a propaganda machine. It's just aimed at other countries and peoples.
Yep.
But during World War II, mm-hmm. all these superheroes comics that were out, they were basically propagandizing every single American superhero was faster, stronger, smarter than be it the Japanese or the Germans.
Nazis. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I guess it's actually 70 years ago that the very first the first comic book produced by the American Security Council was produced back in 1951, and the title of the book was The Korean War. Mm. And it explained why it was important for us to have how it was important for the United States to be there and to fight communism. And in 53, this came out, this book here, and it explained how our ships were going around with nuclear weapons. It explained that if the Russians or the communists attacked us, nuked us, what we were supposed to do in school. We're supposed to duck and cover and get under the desk, and that was going to save us. And then, so those were the two books that the federal government produced.
And why do you think that they decided to do it in the form of comics for children? I mean, was it because they thought that the comics would resonate with the kids in a way that other things wouldn't resonate? Like, why specifically a comic? Any thoughts there? I guess it may have to do with the fact that comics were incredibly popular, widely read back then by kids and also by adults. But go ahead.
And they were read by adults and young kids. People in the military probably read these. And there were a lot of these books produced. And I find it interesting that the cover price, especially starting in the 50s, was 25 cents. In the 68, which is when this was reprinted, it was 25 cents as well. That's pretty expensive for a comic.
You would think that the federal government would underwrite its own cost.
You would think that maybe they sold a few, but a lot of these were given out to schools, school districts.
Got it.
And dispensed among the population.
How thick is that book? Because I was not able to get a page count or anything like that online. Is it a relatively thick book?
No, it is not. It's a relatively thin book.
Okay.
And it's an interesting piece of propaganda.
No doubt.
We haven't done since then.
And again, it's something that I was not necessarily aware of or thinking about. So I appreciate the fact that you brought it to the surface and identified it, because I do think that it's culturally relevant, right? I mean, because you're basically talking about an internal facing propaganda machine where the federal government is creating propaganda for kids. I don't know if they do that now, but I find that really fascinating. Go ahead, Milt.
Well, the books that were produced in the 50s, and then reproduced in 68, this one, there was a lot of crap going on in 1968 in this country. A lot of stuff against the government, against and anti-Vietnam stuff in particular. And in here, they do talk about satellite countries, how it's important that we prop up and maintain those governments as democratic governments, be it South Vietnam, South Korea. There were various other ones, but it's interesting. They also talk a little bit in here about the Cuba, and I just think that it was very most comics these days, and even going back then, a lot of comics were written and the art was done and stuff by people who were fairly liberal. And they were trying to maybe get some of the conservative viewpoint out there, to
balance it out a little bit.
And I mean, there was a book that involved Spider-Man in the 70s, where the National Security Council at that time had a hand in producing. I have that. I don't know where the heck it is. I'll find the damn thing sometime.
Yeah. I mean, the Marvel worked with everybody back in the day, so I'm not completely surprised that they work with the government. And they did all kinds of stuff for Hostess and anybody else that had some cash. They were working with them, right? Well, so I'm not surprised.
There was a Spider-Man book, and I believe an Avengers book at that time in the 70s as well.
If you remember what those books are, let me know. One last question for you before I let you go. How expensive is this book, and how easy is it to find if you know that?
I do not know that.
Okay.
My guess is, based upon the age and everything, maybe $100, $200 tops.
Okay.
Well, one of my favorite right-wing books that came out was whenever Reagan became president in 1980, they put a comic book out. I believe the company was Solson, Solson. They did a book called Reagan's Raiders.
Got a couple of copies of it, brother.
And I always thought that was a classic.
I have a couple of copies of it in the 100K collection. I may actually pull it out now that you brought the topic up.
Well, they're fun. They're you know.
Who doesn't want to see Ronald Reagan as a gun-toting, basically superhero? You know,
Yeah, he was a hard ass. What can you say?
No doubt, no doubt. So Milt, where can people get a hold of you on the social media should they choose to track you down?
I am on Instagram. I haven't been posting a lot of things there under Milt's Comics, but I also have that YouTube where Milt's Comics Mansion that I haven't been posting stuff lately either. Work's been a killer.
Yeah.
So I've been really busy.
Trust me, brother, I feel your pain.
What's funny is I'm looking across here. Everyone's complaining about how long CGC takes, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 boxes from CGC that I haven't unboxed yet.
Hey, check it out. Send me a couple of those boxes. I'll unbox them. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Take care of it. Because I know you've got some good stuff in there, you know?
I hope so, but we'll see.
All right, Milt. Well, hey, brother, thank you very much for coming on the channel. Thank you for sharing that book with us. I absolutely appreciate it.
Reggie, thank you for having me. You take care.
All right. Be well. All right. So my last guest, who has been patiently waiting behind the scenes, is a person that has been on the channel several times before. My good buddy, Donald. How you doing, man?
I am doing well, Reggie. Greetings, good people. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Oof, every time it catches me. It's good to see you, my man. How are things?
Busy.
Yeah.
Busy.
Busy
So busy that I haven't posted on my YouTube channel in a couple weeks. But it's
busy
coming.
Keeps you out of trouble.
Busy keeps me out of trouble.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So Donald, you have been behind the scenes for a while now. You've been listening to the conversation. You know how this is going to go. What book have you selected for us to highlight that is culturally relevant? Let me know, and then we're going to break it down just a little bit.
Sure thing. It's a twofer, but they go hand in hand. It is Hell Rider series, parts 1 and parts 2.
So you were not talking about Ghost Rider. You were talking about Hell Rider, correct?
We're gonna dive into that. We're gonna dive into that.
So why did you pick a twofer, part 1 and part 2, Hell Rider? What is it about those two books specifically that prompted you to bring them to the surface?
Well, I featured this book on my YouTube Black Comic Characters, and it's significant in the fact that we often cite Storm as the first Black female superhero, but that's not true. If you look down there, there is the Butterfly, and she is actually, there you go, yep, right on the bottom right corner. She is she has a feature in this comic, and she is actually the first Black female superhero to date. Let me put that in there because there's a lot of comics out there that we don't know about. But this is evidenced in the fact that this was published by Skywald Publications in 1971. And this, of course, was 4 years before Storm was published by Marvel in Giant Size X-Men. A lot of people don't know about her for good reasons, because these are the only 2 comics that were published in the Hell Rider series. There were only 2.
And what about the publisher? How long did the publisher exist? Right, they published 2 issues. She's in them. How long did the publisher last? The
publisher lasts from 1970 to 1975.
Okay,
so it was short-lived. Short-lived for just 5 years.
And
but
not a long time, not a lot of issues, which probably affected people's ability to really get to know this character, unlike Marvel that's been around forever, right? But go ahead, I interrupted your thought. But
a lot of talent came through Skywald Publications.
Tell me more about that, because I don't know what you're referring to right there. Talk about that.
Yep. John Byrne's first professional work was published in Skywall. This, I think this is, inside is Ross Andrew, Gary Friedrich, Mike Esposito. These are all people that helped put Hellrider together. A lot of future talent came through with Skywall Publications.
Yep. Has that character, the Butterfly, appeared in anything else outside of Hellrider? Like, is there anything else out there? No.
Nope.
Yeah.
She was only in these 2 issues, as far as I know.
Yeah. And in your mind, I know you gave us this already, but what makes this culturally relevant? Put a little bit of a bow on that for us.
Well, I think that I think it's one of those points that, of course, there were Black females in comics prior to Storm. They weren't exactly superheroes, of course, but they didn't really. They were very rarely featured. So to have a Black woman in 1971 be featured in her own portion of Hellrider is pretty significant. Is pretty significant, even though she did not garner a lot of popularity. Similar to Lobo, which it just, Lobo, of course, was a Black man who was out in the Western days fighting to clear his name. Again, that only lasted 2 issues.
Yeah, and honestly, Lobo was a great read.
Lobo was well a great read.
The artwork was good, the lettering was good, the writing was good. I enjoyed it. And you've read Lobo. How does the Hellrider compare in terms of the visuals? Is it black and white? Is it color? Because I've honestly never looked at it.
Yeah, it's black and white. Let me crack it real quick. How is the read?
The
read is okay.
Okay.
It's got a lot of 70s nostalgia to it.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. There's a lot of there you go. There's a lot of there you go. There's a feature of it there. Hopefully, I can
see if I can zoom in on you a little bit.
There you go. Yeah. So
I remember that image from your videos that you put out.
Yes. So I think Lobo was a better read.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
There was a lot of questions that were remaining left unanswered in Hellrider, and the two comics are not connected.
Oh,
so it's like a totally so it's like a totally separate story in each of the comics.
So how did you first come to learn of this character? Because I don't know that I know that. How did you first learn of this character in that book specifically?
Well, of course, when I was doing, the Black comic characters on Instagram, I was kind of researching the history of Black comic characters. And of course, Storm comes up as the first Black female superhero a lot. However, there was a tidbit on a page that I found that cited the Butterfly, and she was in this the very obscure website. She was cited as the first Black female superhero. And I'm like, well, let me look into it. And I looked at the publication dates, and 1971 is when this was published. So, yeah, she was the first Black female superhero. And I think that...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was about to ask how hard it is to actually find copies of that book, because I feel like I own Lobo. I feel like I should own this book as well now. Like it's just they're both obscure books. They have some cultural relevance, right? And I think that's the kind of book that I would want in my collection, because it is a little obscure. It has some cultural relevance to it. So my question again is, how hard is it to find?
Recently, I leading up to the show, I was kind of looking to see how available it is. It's not as available as it was maybe 3 years ago, because I got this about that time.
Okay.
So it's I looked on eBay. There's one with half the cover torn off. And yeah.
That's a no.
And so yes, that's the only one that I see out there.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. And how much was that one? Do you remember? A couple of bucks?
This one,
no, not yours. I'm not asking. You can tell me if you want to tell me. I wasn't.
The one that with the page torn off was $99.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And that's less than what I paid for this one.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I got this one less than what that one was.
Oh,
so
yeah. So I blame you for jacking it up because you've been out there promoting it, talking about it for all these years. Now I can't even get a copy. I talked to somebody the other day. I think it was a comic called Black Man. You've probably heard of that comic.
Yep. Oh man, that freaking book is super hard to freaking find, man. I've only seen it like once.
I've never seen it. I have a guy locally that reached out to me. He's like, check it out. This book is not for sale, but if you want to come over to the house, I'll let you see it. Yep. And I was like, no, I don't want to come to your house to see it. I want to buy it. If I come to your house, I'm leaving with it. So no, I'm not coming. Because that again is, I have a search set up on eBay to notify me anytime a copy comes up. Because again, a book that I would want to own. You know what I'm saying? Like Megaton. I like Megaton with his two hearts. I think these characters are cool. They're kind of obscure. They look like me. I kind of want them, but they're not easy to find all the time. So
Ebon is another one that's hard to find. The first independent published
out of San Francisco.
Right, out of San Francisco.
Had a guy reach out to me, said, hey, I just came across this collection and there's a copy in there. I said, hey, are you trying to sell this book? No, I don't think I'm trying to sell it. I'm like, why are you talking to me then?
Right. Why did you call me?
What'd you say?
I said, why did you call me?
Yeah. Just rubbing it in. He's just rubbing it in, you know, but it's that is not a book you see all that often at all in any way, shape, or form. And it's just these independent underground type of comics that I think are just really, really cool that I would love to have in the collection. But they don't come up all that often. So Hell Rider is one that I'm not going to add to my list to try to see if I can track down a copy because I like to add it to the collection. But I want to thank you, brother, for giving up a little bit of time to come on the show. What is this? Like your sixth time that you've been on the show?
Yeah, this is the sixth time. And can I add just one more if you don't?
Yeah, get after it, man.
Because I'm going to put on my posh accent for this because it seems that there's a lot of hubbub about this 9.6 amazing fantasy that's sold for 3.6 million. And I just wanted to say that I don't think that they have what I have. So, yes, I think that depends on how you see it. This is culturally relative, I think.
What's funny, man, is I have a team meeting on Friday. and our VP, he makes a share, which I am slightly uncomfortable with, but I'm actually going to share. The question that we asked this week is, if you had unlimited money, what would you treat yourself to? And in the slide deck that I put together, because I'm a marketer, so I think in slides. Slide 1 is Amazing Fantasy 15, 9.6. I'm like, if I had infinite money, getting that. Slide 2 was a Porsche GT. No, it was a Porsche I think it was a GT. This Porsche is $194,000, and I'm like, I would look so good in that car.
Anyone would.
I don't think you would look bad in a Porsche like that.
I mean, how can you look bad?
Yeah, right. And if I'm riding next to a 9.6 Amazing Fantasy 15, I look even more better. You know what I'm saying?
There's nothing that you can't do.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you for taking the liberties there to show your very posh Amazing Fantasy over there. Thank you for coming on the channel again, man. It is always a pleasure, brother. I hope that things settle down for you, because busy is good. Busy keeps you out of trouble, but too busy starts to become a problem. So hopefully some of the stuff settles down and you can get back to creating content for your channel and even coming on here more often. But before I let you go, where can people get a hold of you on the social media?
On the social media, you can find me at Solly2Kings on Instagram, SOLLY, the number 2, KINGS. And you can find me on YouTube at Black Comic Characters, as well as Twitter, Black Comic.
There we go. Thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate you. Be well, okay?
Reggie, good to see you, man.
All right. So we spent, got to take it off. So we spent a little bit of time over the course of this show talking about some culturally relevant comics. We only touched on, depending upon the liberties that were taken, a handful of comics from our 4 guests. And I definitely want to encourage you guys to, in the comment section, if you know of some other culturally relevant comics that resonate with you, I want to encourage you to leave those comments behind, because again, this is about sharing. This is about highlighting some of these books that don't necessarily go up on the wall, that people don't necessarily show in videos and all that kind of stuff. That's what this is about. So if you do have some culturally relevant comics, I definitely want to encourage you guys to leave those things in the comment section. If you guys have not watched my top 10 submitted books into CGC video from yesterday, I definitely want to encourage you guys to do that. I also launched a new page on ReggieCollects.com. It is a page that is dedicated to Garage Con. On the page is a countdown to Garage Con, which is taking place on November 20th. And there are some photos from previous Garage Cons that have been posted up there. I have a few more that I just received earlier today from Matt Woods that I'm also going to post up there. So head over to ReggieCollects.com, look for the link for Garage Con, check that out, because the photos are really awesome. And I want to try to update this page on an ongoing basis as we move through these various Garage Cons. And again, as a reminder, there is a video that is coming out tomorrow. It is a Blue Ocean spec video in which we're going to highlight 3 Blue Ocean spec books that are not found in Key Collector app. And by watching and commenting on that video, if you are in North America, you can actually win an opportunity to get this book right here. This is The Hobbit, and this is a book that was highlighted in a previous video. It is a pretty cool book that is tied to the Lord of the Rings. And if you have missed that video, go back and watch it, because in it, Doug and I kind of explained the rationale as to why this book could have some spec associated with it. All right. And last thing I will say to you, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Reggie Collects. Take care.